Jake Miller walked through the dark cave with his flashlight. He had been on the planet Draken 7 for 3 weeks now. His job was to study alien animals and plants. The cave was full of beautiful blue crystals that glowed in the dark. He loved exploring new places like this. Then he heard a strange sound. It was like a deep growl mixed with a cry for help. Jake stopped walking and listened carefully. The sound came again, louder this time. It was coming from deeper inside the cave. He knew he should probably go back and get help, but something made him keep walking forward. When Jake reached the big chamber at the end of the cave, he could not believe his eyes. There was a huge creature trapped under fallen crystals. It looked exactly like the dragons from old Earth stories. The creature had shiny blue and green scales that reflected his flashlight. 4 large wings were stuck under the heavy crystal rocks. Its long neck twisted as it tried to get free. The dragon turned its head and looked straight at Jake. Its eyes were bright gold and very intelligent. Jake could tell this was not just an animal. This creature was smart, maybe as smart as humans. He felt scared but also amazed. The dragon made a low sound, not angry but tired and hurt. Jake saw dark blood coming from where the crystals had cut the dragon's wing. The creature had been trapped here for a long time. It was getting weaker. If Jake left to get help, the dragon might die before he got back. He had to make a choice right now. He took a deep breath and walked closer. The dragon watched him but did not move. Jake raised his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. He spoke in a soft voice even though he knew the dragon probably could not understand English. Sometimes the tone of voice matters more than words. Jake pulled out his plasma cutter from his tool belt. It was meant for cutting rock samples, but it should work on crystals too. He started cutting the crystals that were trapping the dragon's wings. The work was slow and careful. One wrong cut could make more crystals fall and hurt the dragon even more. As he worked, Jake kept talking to the dragon. He told it about Earth and how he grew up near mountains. He talked about his sister who loved animals. He said anything that came to his mind just to keep the dragon calm. The creature seemed to listen. Its breathing became slower and more relaxed. Hours passed. Jake's arms hurt from holding the plasma cutter. Sweat dripped down his face. The cave was hot and the air was hard to breathe. But he kept working. Every time he cut away a piece of crystal, the dragon would shift a little, trying to help free itself. Finally, Jake cut through the last big piece. The crystal fell away with a loud crash. The dragon suddenly pushed up with all its strength. Its wings spread wide, filling the entire chamber. Jake fell backward from the force. He thought this was it. The dragon would kill him now or just fly away without looking back. But the dragon did not leave. Instead, it lowered its huge head until its nose almost touched Jake's face. Hot breath blew across him. The golden eyes stared into his own. Jake felt something strange, like the dragon was looking into his mind. Then he felt a wave of emotion that was not his own. It was gratitude, pure and simple. The dragon made a sound that was almost gentle. Then it turned and ran toward the cave opening. With powerful beats of its damaged wings, it lifted into the air and flew out into the purple sky of Draken 7. Jake watched it go until it was just a small dot in the distance. He sat down on the cave floor, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. He had just saved an alien dragon's life. Nobody back at the research base would believe this. He was not even sure he believed it himself. Jake made his way back through the cave tunnels. By the time he reached the research base, it was dark outside. His colleague Lisa Hayes was waiting at the door looking worried. "Where have you been?" "We were about to send a search team," she said. Jake tried to explain what happened. Lisa looked at him like he was crazy. The base commander, Captain Helen Boyd, was called in. Jake told the story again. Helen listened without interrupting, but he could see she was skeptical. "Did you record any of this?" Helen asked. Jake shook his head. "It happened too fast. I was focused on freeing the creature." "So we have no proof that these dragons exist," Helen said. "Jake, you know the rules. We need evidence before we can report new intelligent species." "I know what I saw," Jake said firmly. "That dragon was as smart as we are. Maybe smarter," Helen sighed. "Get some rest. We'll discuss this in the morning." Jake went to his small room but could not sleep. He kept thinking about those golden eyes and the feeling of connection he had experienced. Something important had happened in that cave. He just did not know what it meant yet. 3 days went by. Jake tried to go back to his normal work, but he could not stop thinking about the dragon. He looked at the sky, constantly hoping to see it again. The other researchers started making jokes about his dragon story. Only Lisa seemed to believe him, or at least she did not laugh at him. On the fourth day, everything changed. Jake was outside collecting rock samples when the sky suddenly got dark. He looked up and his jaw dropped. There were not one but 7 dragons flying above the research base. They circled in a pattern that looked planned and organized. People ran out of the buildings. Security Officer Greg Turner came out with a weapon. Everyone was shouting and pointing at the sky. Jake felt his heart racing. The blue and green dragon he had saved was there. He recognized it immediately. But there were 6 others with it. The dragons began to descend toward the base. Greg raised his weapon to shoot. Jake ran forward and pushed the gun down. "Don't shoot them," Jake yelled. "Just wait and see what they want." The dragons landed in a circle around the humans. Jake noticed they were all different colors. Red ones, silver ones, and one huge golden dragon that seemed to be the leader. But the blue and green dragon was in front. It looked right at Jake, and he knew it had come back for a reason. The blue and green dragon stepped forward. Jake felt everyone behind him tense up, ready to run, but he stayed still. The dragon opened its mouth and Jake thought this was the end. Instead, something fell out onto the ground. 3 eggs that looked like they were made of crystal. They glowed with a soft light from inside. The dragon gently pushed the eggs toward Jake with its nose. Then it stepped back. Jake looked at the eggs and then at the dragon. He understood. This was a gift. The dragon was giving him something precious to say thank you. The huge golden dragon moved next. It was easily 3 times bigger than the blue and green one. This had to be the leader of the group. The golden dragon walked closer to Jake. Everyone behind him gasped. Then the dragon did something incredible. It lowered its head all the way to the ground. It was bowing to him. Lisa whispered from somewhere behind Jake. "What is happening?" "I think they want to be friends," Jake said quietly. His voice was shaking with excitement and fear. One by one, the other dragons came forward. Each one placed something on the ground. Strange glowing plants. Rocks that sparkled with colors Jake had never seen. Even what looked like old tools or artifacts from some ancient civilization. The dragons were offering gifts, showing respect. Jake realized they were waiting for him to do something back. He needed to give them something too. But what did he have that would matter to dragons? He thought for a moment, then took off his research tablet from his belt. It held all his notes and data from years of work. It was his most important possession. He walked forward slowly and placed the tablet on the ground between himself and the golden dragon. The dragon looked at it carefully. Then it lifted its head and made a sound. It was like singing, beautiful and haunting. The other dragons joined in, creating a harmony that made Jake's chest vibrate. After the song ended, the dragons did not leave. They settled down on the ground around the research base like they were planning to stay. Captain Helen came forward carefully. "What do they want?" she asked Jake. "I think they want to learn about us," Jake said, "just like we want to learn about them." Over the next few days, Jake spent every moment he could with the dragons. The blue and green one stayed close to him. He started calling her Azure in his mind because of her colors. Azure seemed to understand that Jake was trying to communicate. Jake used pictures and hand gestures. Azure responded with different sounds and movements. Slowly, they began to understand each other. It was not like speaking in words, but more like sharing feelings and simple ideas. Jake learned that Azure was female and that she was young, maybe like a teenager in dragon years. The golden dragon was the leader of their family group. Azure showed Jake through mental images that dragons lived in packs like wolves on Earth. They had territories and complex social rules. What amazed Jake most was learning that dragons were very intelligent. They could think and plan and feel emotions just like humans. Jake also learned something sad. There was another group of dragons from the north who were very aggressive. They had been attacking Azure's family for months. Azure was the best scout in her pack. When she got trapped in the cave, her family was in serious trouble. Jake saving her might have saved her whole family. Captain Helen was starting to see how important this was. She called a meeting with all the senior staff. Jake, Lisa, and Greg were there too. Earth Command is very interested in what is happening here, Helen said. "If we can make an alliance with these dragons, it could change everything. The territory they control has rare minerals we need." Greg spoke up. "We should give them weapons to help fight the Northern Pack. Show them we are serious about being allies." "No," Jake said firmly. "That is not why they came to us. They do not want us to fight their battles. Then what do they want? Helen asked. Jake thought about the mental images Azure had shared with him. I think they want to understand us. Every other alien species that came to this planet either tried to hunt dragons or just ignored them. We are the first ones to help them without wanting something first. That means something to them. Lisa nodded. Jake is right. If we start giving them weapons, we become just like everyone else. We become users. But what if the Northern Pack attacks them while they are here? Greg asked. We cannot just watch when we defend our base, and Helen decided. If the Northern Pack comes here, they are threatening us too. But we do not go looking for fights. Jake spent more time with Azure and the other dragons. He learned their names, or at least what he thought were their names. The Golden Leader's name sounded like a deep bell ringing. The Silver Dragons were siblings. One of the Red Dragons was very old and seemed to be like a teacher or advisor. Azure showed Jake her world through shared visions. He saw their nesting grounds in the mountains. He saw how they hunted the large flying creatures that lived in the upper atmosphere. He saw their young learning to fly. It was beautiful and alien and wonderful all at once. Jake also shared his memories with Azure. He showed her Earth with its blue oceans and green forests. He showed her cities full of humans and tall buildings. He showed her spaceships traveling between stars. Azure seemed fascinated by everything. One evening, as the sun was setting, Azure suddenly became alert. All the dragons stood up at once. They were looking north toward the mountains. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Something was wrong. The Golden Leader made a loud call. The other dragons responded. They were communicating something urgent. Azure looked at Jake and he felt her fear through their connection. The Northern Pack was coming. Helen ordered everyone inside the base. The defensive shields were activated. Automated weapons came online. But Jake knew these were meant for small threats, not for a battle between dragon packs. How many are coming? Helen asked Jake. Jake concentrated on what he was feeling from Azure. A lot. Maybe 20 or more. We cannot fight that many, Greg said. We do not have to, Jake replied. This is not our fight. But even as he said it, Jake knew things were not that simple. Azure's pack had come here because of him. If the Northern Pack attacked here, humans would be in danger too. Everything had gotten very complicated very fast. The dragons took to the air. They formed up in a defensive pattern around the research base. Azure looked back at Jake one more time before joining them. He felt her determination mixed with worry. She was afraid but ready to fight. In the distance, dark shapes appeared in the sky. The Northern Pack was coming. The Northern Dragons arrived like a dark storm. They were bigger and looked more aggressive than Azure's pack. Their scales were darker colors, blacks and deep purples and blood red. At the front flew the biggest dragon Jake had ever seen. Its scales were completely black and seemed to absorb light. Scars covered its body and one eye was cloudy white. This had to be the leader Azure had shown him in visions. Jake had started thinking of it as the Render, because of how Azure's images showed it tearing through enemies. The Render was terrifying to look at. It was easily twice the size of the Golden Leader of Azure's pack. The two groups of dragons met in the air above the research base. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the Render roared and the battle began. Dragons crashed into each other in midair. Fire and ice blasted back and forth. Some dragons had fire breath, while others could breathe freezing cold air. The sound was deafening. Jake watched from a window in the base. His heart was pounding. Azure was out there fighting. He could feel her through their connection. She was quick and agile, dodging attacks and striking back, but the Northern Dragons were stronger and more brutal. We have to do something, Jake said to Captain Helen. What can we do? Helen replied. Our weapons might hurt them. We could make things worse. If Azure's pack loses, we are next, Greg pointed out. The Render will see us as enemies. Jake watched the battle. He saw a silver dragon from Azure's pack get hit by fire breath. It fell from the sky, crashing into the rocks below. He felt sick. These creatures had come to the base because of him. Now they were dying. He made a decision. Before anyone could stop him, Jake ran out of the base. Lisa shouted his name, but he kept running. He grabbed a flare gun from the emergency supplies near the door. His hands were shaking as he loaded it. The dragons were so focused on fighting each other that none of them noticed one small human running into the open. Jake aimed the flare gun at the sky and fired. The bright red light shot up, leaving a trail of smoke. It exploded in a brilliant burst right between the two fighting groups. The fighting stopped. All the dragons turned to look. Jake stood there in the open, completely exposed. He felt like the smallest thing in the universe. 27 pairs of dragon eyes stared at him. He was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. The render descended from the sky. It landed so hard the ground cracked under its claws. The other dragons stayed back, watching. Azure tried to fly down to protect Jake, but the Golden Leader held her back. This was something Jake had to do alone. Up close, the render was even more terrifying. Its scarred face showed a lifetime of battles. Teeth as long as Jake's arm showed when it opened its mouth. Hot breath that smelled like sulfur washed over him. Every instinct in Jake's body screamed at him to run. But he did not run. He pointed at the render, then at himself. He was challenging the dragon. It was insane. The render could kill him in a dozen different ways without even trying hard. But Jake was counting on the dragon's intelligence. Azure made a distressed sound from above. She was terrified for him. Jake felt her fear through their connection, but he did not look away from the render. He kept his eyes locked on the dragon's one good eye. "I know you can understand me," Jake said. His voice was steadier than he felt. "You are smart enough to know what will happen if you kill me. More humans will come. They will bring weapons and ships. Is that what you want?" The render tilted its massive head, studying him. Jake continued talking. "Your fight is with them, not with me." Jake gestured to Azure's pack. "I am not part of this. I just helped one dragon who was hurt. That does not make me your enemy." The render moved closer. Jake could see his reflection in the dragon's black scales. He was so small compared to this creature. One swipe of those claws would end him. But he stood his ground. "If you want to fight, you will have to go through me first," Jake said. It was a bluff, and they both knew it. But sometimes a bluff was all you had. The render stared at him for what felt like forever. Then incredibly, it made a sound. At first, Jake thought it was another roar. But then he realized the dragon was laughing. The sound was rough and grinding, but it was definitely laughter. Then the render spoke. The words were hard to understand, formed by a throat not made for human language. But Jake heard them clearly. Brave. Stupid. Interesting. Jake felt his legs almost give out from shock. The dragon could speak English, or at least enough to communicate. How was that possible? Had it learned from watching humans? Were dragons that smart? The render turned away from Jake and looked at the Golden Leader of Azure's pack. It said something in the dragon language, a series of growls and musical notes that Jake could not understand. The Golden Leader responded. They were negotiating something. After a few minutes, the render spread its wings. It called to its pack with a loud cry. One by one, the northern dragons broke away from the fight. They formed up behind their leader. Jake held his breath, not sure what would happen next. The render looked back at Jake one more time. "We will meet again, small brave one," it said. Then with powerful beats of its wings, it took off. The northern pack followed, flying back toward their territory in the mountains. Jake's legs finally did give out. He sat down hard on the ground. Azure landed next to him immediately, making worried sounds. She nuzzled him gently with her nose, nearly knocking him over. Through their connection, Jake felt her relief and confusion and gratitude all mixed together. The Golden Leader landed in front of Jake. It looked at him with respect in its eyes. Then it did something Jake had never expected. The dragon touched its forehead to Jake's forehead. Suddenly, Jake's mind was flooded with images and feelings that were not his own. He saw the dragon's history. He saw them living on this world for thousands of years. He saw wars between packs and great flights across the planet. He saw the first aliens who came and tried to hunt them. He saw their fear and anger at being treated like animals instead of intelligent beings. But he also saw hope. Hope that maybe humans were different. Hope that one act of kindness in a dark cave meant something bigger. Hope for a future where dragons were not alone and always fighting. The connection broke and Jake gasped. The Golden Leader stepped back. Jake understood now. The dragons had not just been testing Azure's pack. They had been testing him. Testing humanity. That single moment of helping Azure without expecting anything in return had changed everything. Lisa and Greg ran out to help Jake stand up. Helen followed more slowly, looking shocked by what she had witnessed. "Did that dragon just speak English?" Lisa asked. "Yes," Jake said. He was still processing everything he had seen in the vision. "They are much smarter than we thought." "Much smarter. What did the render and the Golden Leader talk about?" Helen asked. Jake thought about what he had felt through Azure's connection during that conversation. I think they made a truce. At least temporary. Because of what happened here. Because you stood between them, Greg said with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. Jake looked at Azure and the other dragons. They were settling down again, tending to their wounded. The silver dragon that had fallen was hurt but alive. The pack was gathering around it, helping it. We need to report this to Earth Command, Helen said. Everything has changed. Jake nodded, but his mind was on something else. The Render had said they would meet again. That was not a threat. It was a promise. The Northern Pack leader was interested in humans now. In Jake specifically. That could be good or very dangerous. Only time would tell. That night Jake could not sleep again. But this time it was not from worry. It was from excitement about what might come next. News about the dragon spread through human space faster than Jake expected. Within 2 weeks, Draken 7 went from a small research outpost to one of the most important places in human territory. Ships arrived carrying diplomats, scientists, and military officers. Everyone wanted to see the dragons and understand what was happening. Jake became famous overnight. People called him the Dragon Speaker. He did not like the attention, but he accepted it because it helped protect Azure and her pack. The more important the dragons were to humanity, the safer they would be. Captain Helen was promoted and given more resources. The research base expanded quickly. New buildings went up to house all the people arriving, but Helen made sure that the dragons had their space too. She ordered that no one could approach them without Jake's approval. Jake spent his days helping humans and dragons understand each other. It was exhausting work. The dragons were patient, but some of the newly arrived humans were not. They wanted fast results and clear answers. But building trust between two species was not something that could be rushed. Azure stayed close to Jake. Their connection had grown stronger after the Golden Leader shared that vision with him. Sometimes Jake could understand what Azure was feeling or thinking without any words or gestures. It was like having a friend who could speak directly to your mind. Through Azure, Jake learned more about dragon culture. They valued courage and loyalty above everything else. They believed in direct action rather than talking in circles. They respected strength but also wisdom. In many ways, they were not so different from humans. The Golden Leader, whose name Jake learned sounded like Aurum to human ears, began teaching Jake the dragon language. It was difficult. Dragons made sounds that human throats could not copy, but Jake learned to understand when they spoke. That was enough. One morning, something unexpected happened. A ship landed at the base and the Render stepped out. No, not the Render itself, but 3 dragons from the Northern Pack. They came in peace without weapons or aggression. They wanted to talk. Helen immediately called for extra security. Greg wanted to turn them away, but Jake insisted they be allowed to stay. Azure was nervous, but she trusted Jake's judgment. Aurum agreed to meet with the Northern Dragons. The meeting took place on the open ground between the base and where Azure's pack had made their home. Jake stood with Aurum and Azure. The 3 Northern Dragons landed and bowed their heads in respect. One of them, a dark red female, spoke first. "The Render sends greetings to the small brave one," she said in rough English. "He wishes to speak with you." "Why?" Jake asked. "What does he want?" "To understand," the Red Dragon replied. "You stopped a battle without weapons. You put yourself between enemies without fear. The Render has never seen such a thing. He wants to know if all humans are like you." Jake glanced at Helen, who was watching from a distance. She nodded slightly, giving him permission to handle this his way. He turned back to the Red Dragon. "I was scared," Jake admitted, "but I could not let you all kill each other over something I started by helping Azure. Not all humans would have done what I did, but many would have. We believe in trying to solve problems without violence when possible." The Red Dragon seemed to consider this. "The Render wishes to make a proposal. He wants to meet with human leaders. He wants to learn about your kind as Aurum's pack has learned. He believes there is much we can teach each other." This was huge. Jake felt excitement rising in his chest. If both dragon packs were willing to work with humans, it could change everything. But he had to be careful. Trust was fragile. "What about the war between your packs?" Jake asked. "Can there be peace?" "The Render and Aurum must decide that," the Red Dragon said. "But the Render believes that old wars mean less when new possibilities open up. He is willing to talk." Over the next month, something remarkable happened. The Render came to the base himself. He was less scary in daylight when he was not attacking. He was still huge and intimidating, but also clearly intelligent and curious. He asked endless questions about human history, technology, and culture. Jake spent time with both dragon packs. He saw that they were not so different from each other. The northern pack was more aggressive because they lived in harsher territory with less food. They had to be tough to survive. But they were not evil. They were just trying to take care of their families. Slowly, carefully, Jake helped to negotiate a peace between Orum's pack and the Render's pack. It was not easy. There were old grudges and hurt feelings on both sides, but the presence of humans gave them something new to focus on, something bigger than their old conflicts. One evening, Jake sat with Azure on a cliff overlooking the purple landscape of Dracon 7. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Azure hummed contentedly, a sound that rumbled through Jake's body where he leaned against her side. "Do you ever think about leaving this planet?" Jake asked her. Through their connection, Azure sent him feelings of curiosity mixed with uncertainty. She showed him images of her home, the mountains and valleys she had known all her life. But she also showed him images from Jake's memories, the stars and distant worlds. "Humans travel between worlds," Jake continued. "We have ships that can cross vast distances. Would you want to see those other places? Would other dragons?" Azure pulled back to look at him. Her golden eyes were thoughtful. She made a series of sounds, half question and half statement. Jake understood. She was asking if humans would take dragons with them to the stars. "I don't know," Jake admitted. "No one has ever asked, but maybe they should ask. Maybe you should ask." The idea stuck in Jake's mind over the following days. He talked to Helen about it. She was skeptical at first. "Dragons in space?" she said. "How would that even work? They need air and food. They are too big for normal ships." "We could design ships for them," Jake argued. "Think about it. Dragons are strong, intelligent, and can survive in harsh conditions. They would make amazing explorers. And imagine what it would mean to them. They have been stuck on this one world forever. We could show them the universe." Helen took the idea to her superiors on Earth. Jake talked to Orum and the Render about it. Both dragon leaders were very interested. The idea of seeing other worlds excited them in a way Jake had never seen before, but not everyone was happy about the idea. Some human politicians worried about giving dragons access to space travel. What if they became a threat? What if they decided they did not need humans anymore? There were long debates and arguments. Jake grew frustrated with all the talk. He knew dragons better than any of these politicians. Dragons valued loyalty. If humans helped them reach the stars, dragons would never forget that debt. They would be the most loyal allies humanity could ask for. Finally, after months of discussion, a decision was made. Earth would build a ship designed to carry both humans and dragons. It would be a test. If it worked, more would follow. If it failed, well, at least they tried. The day construction began on the first dragon ship was a celebration. Both Orum's pack and the Render's pack gathered to watch. The old enemies stood side by side, united by the possibility of a future among the stars. But Jake noticed something else happening. Dragons from other packs, ones that had stayed away until now, started arriving. They had heard about what was happening. They wanted to be part of it too. Within a week, there were over 100 dragons at the base. "This is getting out of hand," Greg said nervously. "We cannot support this many." "We don't have to support them," Jake replied. "They can hunt and take care of themselves. They are here because they want to be part of something new. Can you blame them?" Helen watched the growing dragon population with a mixture of worry and wonder. "What are we starting here, Jake?" Jake looked at the dozens of dragons filling the sky and the ground around the base. Azure flew overhead with other young dragons playing and learning together. Former enemies were teaching each other new skills. Something incredible was being born here. "I think we are starting a partnership," Jake said. "One that could change the galaxy." 6 months after Jake first rescued Azure from that cave, something happened that no one expected. The dragons called for a gathering. Every pack on Dracon 7 was invited. Dragons came from territories humans had never even explored. They flew in from distant mountains, deep valleys, and far coastlines. Over 300 dragons filled the sky and covered the ground around the research base. Jake had never imagined there were so many. Each pack had different colors and patterns on their scales. They spoke in different dialects of the dragon language, but they all came together for one purpose. For 3 days and nights, the dragons held their meeting. Humans watched from observation posts but were not allowed to get close. This was something the dragons had to decide for themselves. Jake felt nervous. He had no idea what they were discussing. Azure stayed with the gathering, but she kept sending feelings of reassurance to Jake through their connection. Whatever was happening, she was not worried. That helped Jake stay calm even though the waiting was difficult. On the fourth day, Azure came to find him. Behind her came Aurum and the Render, along with dragons from every pack. They landed in front of the main base building. Captain Helen, Jake, Lisa, and Greg came out to meet them. Aurum spoke first. His voice was solemn and important. "We have made a decision," the Golden Dragon said. "All packs have agreed. We wish to make a formal request of humanity." "What kind of request?" Helen asked carefully. "We wish to leave Draken 7, Aurum continued. "Not all of us, but many. We wish to join humans in exploring the stars. We offer our strength, our knowledge, and our loyalty. In return, we ask only that you help us see the universe beyond our world." Jake felt his heart racing. This was bigger than he had imagined. The dragons were not just interested in space travel. They wanted to join humanity as equal partners. Helen looked shocked. "This is an enormous decision. I need to speak with Earth Command. This goes beyond anything I have authority to approve." "We understand," the Render said in his rough voice. "We will wait. But know this. Humans have shown us something we never believed possible. You showed us that there are beings in the universe who will help without seeking to dominate or destroy. That is worth more than all the territory on this world." The debate on Earth was intense. Jake watched the news feeds and listened to the arguments. Some people thought it was the greatest opportunity in human history. Others thought it was too dangerous. What if the dragons turned on humanity? What if other alien species saw this partnership as a threat? But there were also voices of support. Scientists talked about what dragons could teach humans about survival and adaptation. Military leaders spoke about the strategic value of having such powerful allies. And ordinary people were simply amazed by the idea of dragons flying alongside human ships. Jake was interviewed dozens of times. He always said the same thing. Dragons were not pets or tools. They were intelligent beings who deserved respect. They had chosen to trust humanity based on one act of kindness. Humanity should honor that trust. Finally, after weeks of debate, Earth's Council made their decision. They would accept the dragons' offer. They called it the Drakon Accord. 50 dragons would be chosen to join the human colonial fleet. They would serve as scouts, explorers, and protectors. In return, humanity would help dragons establish new colonies on suitable worlds and provide medical care and resources. The day the announcement was made, dragons and humans celebrated together at the base. It was a strange sight, huge dragons dancing in the air while tiny humans cheered below, but it felt right. It felt like the beginning of something wonderful. Azure was chosen to be one of the 50, so was the Render, which surprised many people. But Jake understood. The Render was one of the smartest and strongest dragons alive. He would be valuable in space, and including him showed that the old conflicts were truly over. The ship was finally finished after 8 months of construction. They called it the Skyfire. It was beautiful, designed with spaces large enough for dragons and equipped with everything humans needed too. It looked like a normal colony ship, but bigger, stronger, and more advanced. Jake stood in the hangar bay watching final preparations. Azure walked up beside him. She was excited. He could feel it through their connection. She hummed that contented sound she made when happy. "Are you ready for this?" Jake asked her. Azure nuzzled his shoulder gently. Through their bond, she sent him images. She showed him the cave where they first met. Then she showed him the moment Jake started cutting the crystals to free her. Finally, she showed him flying through space between stars with Jake beside her. "I'll take that as a yes," Jake said with a smile. The launch day arrived. Hundreds of people and dozens of dragons gathered to watch. The 50 chosen dragons boarded first, finding their spaces in the specially designed chambers. Then the human crew followed. Jake was part of the crew, of course. He was now officially the first human-dragon liaison officer in history. Captain Helen stayed behind to run the research base. She hugged Jake before he boarded. "You started something amazing here," she said. "Don't let anyone forget that." "I just helped one dragon," Jake replied. "Everything else happened because dragons and humans both chose to trust each other." "That's what makes it amazing," Helen said. Jake boarded the Skyfire and found his station. It was right next to the chamber where Azure rested. Through a large window he could see her settling in. Other dragons were visible through other windows. The render was in the chamber next to Azure's. The old warrior looked calm and ready. The captain of the Skyfire was a woman named Commander Kate Pierce. She had served on colony ships for 20 years. She understood what it meant to explore the unknown. She gave the order to launch. The ship lifted smoothly from the ground. Jake felt the familiar sensation of gravity shifting as they climbed into the atmosphere. Through the window he watched Draken 7 get smaller below them. The purple landscape that had become his home for the past year faded into the distance. Then they were in space. The ship's faster-than-light drive powered up with a low hum. Jake felt Azure's excitement spike. She was seeing the stars up close for the first time. All the dragons were restless with wonder and anticipation. "Prepare for jump," Commander Pierce announced over the intercom. The Skyfire's drive engaged. Space twisted around them in ways that human eyes could not quite process. Then with a flash, they jumped. When normal space returned, they were light years away from Dracon 7. A new star system stretched out before them. Jake watched Azure looking out at the alien stars. He felt her amazement through their connection. She had dreamed of this but never truly believed it would happen. Now she was here, flying between the stars on a ship built by beings who had once been strangers. Over the ship's intercom, the render's rough voice came through. He was speaking in dragon language, but Jake understood enough now to get the meaning. The old warrior was singing. It was a song about new beginnings and old debts repaid. Other dragons joined in, their voices creating a harmony that filled the ship. Commander Pierce smiled from her captain's chair. "Well, this is a first. Dragons singing on a colony ship. Get used to it," Jake said. "I think they are going to do a lot of firsts." The Skyfire began its journey into the unknown. Its mission was to explore new worlds and look for places suitable for both human and dragon colonies. Along the way, they would map new systems and make contact with other species if they found any. Jake stood at the observation window with Azure visible through the glass beside him. He thought about that day in the cave. If someone had told him then that it would lead to this, he never would have believed them. One choice to help a trapped creature had changed the course of history. Other alien species in the galaxy started hearing about what humans had done. The fact that humans had made friends with dragons amazed them. Some species were impressed. Others were worried. Dragons had always been feared throughout this region of space. Now they were partners with an emerging spacefaring civilization, but Jake did not worry about what others thought. He knew what he had learned from the dragons. They were loyal, brave, and honorable. They did not forget kindness, and they did not forgive betrayal. As long as humans remained worthy of dragon trust, they would have the most powerful allies imaginable. Azure made a questioning sound. Jake realized she was picking up on his thoughts through their connection. "Just thinking about the future," he told her, "about what we will find out there." Through the bond, Azure sent him feelings of confidence and excitement. Whatever they found, they would face it together. Dragons and humans side by side. The Skyfire jumped again, pushing deeper into unexplored space. Behind them, Draken 7 continued to host both human researchers and the dragon packs that chose to stay. It had become a symbol of what was possible when two different species chose understanding over fear. But ahead of the Skyfire lay infinite possibilities. New worlds to explore, new challenges to face, new friends to make. The age of dragons and humans had truly begun. Jake looked at Azure one more time. She looked back at him with those golden eyes that had first captured his attention in a dark cave so long ago. He remembered being terrified and awed all at once. Now he just felt grateful.